Everything we've ever seen in our lives, or will ever see, is limited to a range called the visible spectrum. Anything beyond red or below violet, we simply can't see. The human eye can't see all colors. What we see is just a tiny portion of the world we live in. Everything visible to us is confined to this small slice, meaning we're missing out on a lot of things. We have this visible part and this invisible part that we can't see because the human eye is designed only to see this very small section, a tiny piece of something called electromagnetic waves, or the electromagnetic spectrum. Okay, to understand how wireless things communicate without wires, I want to talk about each part of this spectrum, so the idea becomes clearer overall. Basically, don't close this video until you understand how life actually works. And, so you can show off to your friends later. Like I said, anything outside this range, whether to the right or left, we can't see it. The human eye just can't. Let's start with gamma rays. Imagine the normal colors of the spectrum that we see every day, but with insane energy. So powerful it's dangerous to living things. For example, nuclear explosions or cosmic events like supernovas, exploding stars, release tremendous energy that produces gamma rays. The danger of gamma rays is that they cause cancer, destroy cells, and are harmful to living organisms. Why? Because their waves are high energy. Like this, these are high energy waves. The light we see every day has much lower energy, something like this. Simple and not strong enough to harm anything. It's also larger than, say, your DNA molecule. Since it's larger, it can't damage it. But gamma rays are much smaller than DNA, so they can literally break it apart. That's why in nuclear explosions or high-energy cosmic events, genetic mutations happen in those areas, because DNA is breaking, changing, and getting messed up. Now, I can't explain something like this without giving you something you can feel. So I'll use sound to give you an example. Sound waves and electromagnetic waves are completely different things, but I want to use sound to deliver the concept because both are waves. The lower the wave frequency, the lower the energy. The higher the frequency, the more information it carries, meaning higher bandwidth, higher energy, and it becomes more intense, more dangerous, and more annoying if we're talking sound. So, let's test this out using sound waves. Let's pick 40 hertz. These waves aren't annoying. You feel them as soft, light vibrations. But if we go higher, the waves carry more detail, more information, and they become unpleasant. Now raise the sound. Wait, lower it, lower it. Don't comment. You broke my ears? I said lower it. Let's give it 5,000 hertz. Whoa, annoying, right? Extremely annoying. Now you get it. The higher the wave frequency, the higher its energy. The lower it is, the less energy. Same thing applies here. This entire side of the spectrum is dangerous if you don't know how to handle it. Gamma rays are used in medical treatment, but can cause cancer. They're dangerous and extremely high energy. Then you have X-rays. We know they're used in hospitals when, for example, you break your leg. They use these waves to take a picture of the broken bone. Above that, there's ultraviolet light. For example, the sun emits tons of UV rays. They're less harmful than the previous two, but still dangerous. There's a lot of detail here, but I'll save that for another channel. Now, let's move to the safer side, the part related to wireless communication between all devices. Okay, I want to show you an example of how your eyes can't see infrared or ultraviolet light. I've got a normal remote here. The kind we all use. It works with infrared light. You can grab any remote near you and look at this little LED part. Press a button, you won't see anything. But if you point it at a camera, which is more sensitive than the human eye, and press, you'll see a flash of light. That's an example of infrared light. Your remote uses it. Any remote can do this. You can't see it with your eyes, but with a camera, something more sensitive, you can. So this shows that everything wireless or using wireless communication happens in this range, from infrared and below. Now, why do we use this range specifically? Why are radio waves perfect for wireless communication? First, you can't see them. Unlike visible light, you don't see radio waves. And if you could, it'd be overwhelming. High-energy waves like gamma are dangerous, and they also don't travel far. They're so small that everything blocks them. Like, if there's a wall, it'll scatter or absorb the wave. The information gets lost. But with infrared and below, the waves are huge, bigger than the wall itself. So they can pass right through and travel long distances without being stopped. That's why radio waves are used for all wireless communication. They travel farther, they're not dangerous, and almost nothing stops them. Now, let me explain something simple: the difference between wavelength and frequency. Let's draw a wave. The wavelength is the distance from one trough to the next peak. This is the wavelength. Frequency, on the other hand, is how many of those waves fit in 1 second. So, if this one has a 3 centimeter wavelength, and you have another with the same length but more waves per second, that's a higher frequency. So here, maybe 3 hertz, there, 10 hertz, same length, but more waves equals higher frequency. Now let's talk about wireless communication. Just like we zoomed in on the visible spectrum for human eyes, let's zoom in on radio waves. In the visible spectrum, we have yellow, red, orange, violet. Here, we have VLF, very low frequency, LF, low frequency, MF, medium frequency, HF, high frequency, VHF, very high frequency, UHF, ultra high frequency, SHF, super high frequency, EHF, extremely high frequency. Let me draw this. Well, not the best drawing, but you get it. As we move right, frequency increases. So VLF, what use is that? Mostly submarines. They use VLF for underwater wireless communication. Like I said, lower frequency equals longer wavelength equals better at penetrating obstacles and perfect for underwater communication. So here, submarines. And also in some European countries, they use LF for radio broadcasting, but rarely. Then MF, used in AM radio, and also a bit for air and marine communications. In HF and VHF, you've got everything we know as traditional radio, TV broadcasting, normal radio stations, navigation systems, walkie-talkies, and city communication systems like police and ambulance radios. Okay, now we move to the part we came for, the modern wireless zone. Sorry for taking so long to reach this, but I had to explain everything before to make it all make sense. So, Bluetooth, mobile networks like 4G, GPS, and regular Wi-Fi, 2.4 gigahertz, all fall under UHF. Wi-Fi 5, 5 gigahertz, and parts of 5G networks fall under SHF and EHF, the extremely high frequency ranges. Now that we know where they are, let's talk about how these signals are transmitted and received. Let's say you have a phone and a cell tower. Before your phone sends out any data, it goes through a few steps. When you make a call, the first thing that happens is your voice data gets digitized. Then it's encoded, including encryption and compression. Compression is important because the smaller the data, the faster and more efficiently it can be sent. Encoding also includes error correction and other processing. Then comes modulation, converting digital data into waves by adjusting things like amplitude or frequency. For example, digital bits like 0-1-1 get represented as wave patterns. After modulation comes amplification, strengthening the signal. Then it goes to the antenna in your phone, which transmits it. The signal travels to the cell tower, which then routes it to the target phone. The other phone does the exact same thing but in reverse, decoding and converting back to sound. That's how wireless communication works. The same concept applies in different forms for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, everything that uses waves. They all turn digital data into waves, send it, and then convert it back. Now, one important note. All electromagnetic waves travel at the speed of light. They are light, just light you can't see. All modern wireless technologies exist in this invisible light region. Efficiency in communication is measured by how much information you can send with the least energy. Let's imagine a 1 meter square. In low frequencies, you get fewer bits of information in that area, like one wave. But at higher frequencies, you get many, more information packed into the same space. That's why new wireless tech uses higher frequencies. They can carry more data. But the advantage of low frequencies is that almost nothing stops them. Walls, buildings, trees, mountains. High frequencies, however, can't travel far. They get blocked easily. That's why, for example, 4G coverage is easier than 5G, because 4G uses lower frequencies with fewer obstacles. Radio's even easier to cover, but as frequencies go up, obstacles become a bigger problem. So, the entire box we zoomed into earlier, the radio wave section, that's where all this happens. Some technologies use microwaves, not very common, and others use infrared, like your TV remote. So, in short, well, a very long short, wireless communication doesn't use cables. It transmits information through electromagnetic waves. There's a direct relationship between wavelength, frequency, and what materials they can pass through. For example, visible light can pass through transparent objects because the arrangement of atoms in those materials allows it. X-rays can pass through your skin, but not bones. That's why we can see bones in an X-ray image. Same principle applies to radio waves. Depending on wavelength and frequency, they can pass through or get blocked by materials. It's a long topic, but now, you understand how information travels wirelessly in general. Sorry it took so long to get to the point about wireless communication, but I hope you now understand why I had to explain everything before it. See you in the next video. Peace.